everybody, it's me. Today I kind of want to start off a new series. I know I've said that about other videos before, but the one I did this past Sunday on the children's Bible stories, that is going to be a new series that I'm going to be doing on Sundays. And the Ride With Me videos are kind of like a new series. Well, not new, but it's kind of a series. I don't have a day of the week designated for Ride With Me. I just do it randomly here and there. But this one I would like to call Fact or Fiction. There are a few creepy stories I'm going to tell you in the video, and you decide whether or not it was fact or made up. Years ago, back in the late 90s, there was a show called Beyond Belief, Fact or Fiction. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. It's really good. It was hosted for a few years by Jonathan Frakes, and then it went off to be hosted by, wait a minute, I gotta have a moment of silence for the lovely, sexy James Brolin. Yes. Anyway, so he was the host of it a few years later until 2002, where I think it ended. But anyway, I really like this show. You can find this show on YouTube. You can look it up wherever it may be and see it for yourself. But this show has like 4 or 5 different stories told in the show, and each little clip is either a true story that actually happened or either it was made up. So after I tell you these stories, you decide. Maybe you can pause your camera. Maybe you can pause your computer, your tablet, your phone, whatever. Pause the video and decide whether or not you think the story I told was true or false. But this video is going to be called Fact or Fiction. So I'm going to start out by telling you a story, and after I tell the story, you decide whether or not it is true or false. And the video that's going to go up right after is going to be a video that sort of wraps up what the stories were, whether they were true or false. So anyway, the first story I'm going to tell you is, I'm not going to tell you the name of the story yet because it might give it away. But anyway, this is where an 18-year-old girl, Marissa Baker, has just graduated from high school. She wants to have like a really cool, fabulous summer before she goes off to college. Wrong. About 3 weeks into summer vacation, she starts having some stomach pains, cramps, and is throwing up every day. Every day she gets up, she starts puking. What does that sound like? Yes. Her mother and her father both agree that they think she is pregnant. So after seeing her sick for a few weeks, they come to her, they sit her down, and they say, "You got to be pregnant." She says, "No, I'm not pregnant. There's no way. I have never had sex. I am a virgin." And they kind of don't believe her as time goes on. So finally, a few weeks later, her mother gets her a pregnancy test. She takes the test. She is not pregnant. And from then on, she starts having these odd, weird cravings, eating everything in sight, and gaining weight. And her parents are like, "You got to be pregnant. If not, we need to find out what's wrong." So they take her to a doctor, a specialist of some kind, and they do x-rays on her stomach. And she's like, "Well, what is this feeling I'm having?" She has started having feelings of movement in her stomach. And he says, "Well, here's your x-rays." He shows them the x-rays, and he says that he believes it is a cyst in her stomach, and that can kind of give her feelings of movement. So he says, "Well, we're going to do some surgery and remove the cyst." So they get her in the surgery room, and as they go and cut her stomach open to remove the cyst, they find a small baby octopus attached to the lining of her stomach. And they're like, "Whoa, they've never seen anything like this before. What in the world, girl?" So they have a meeting with her and her parents, and are like, there can only be one explanation. You had sex with an octopus. No. Supposedly, she had been spending a large amount of time very often at the ocean, and that all they can assume is that she swallowed some water. It had an egg in it of some sort. I don't know. Are they microscopic? I don't know. But that is the reason for her to have been thinking she was pregnant. It completely masqueraded as though she was. And supposedly there was talk that the hospital and her family and the doctors all kept it like very hush hush. I think if that had happened to me, I would seriously want to keep that on the DL. But I thought to myself, that would be not cool, but I would think, if that happened to me, it means she carried it in her stomach all that time. And I would be like, well, it's kind of like her baby. Why don't she take it home and like raise it or something? But anyway, that is the first story. Okay, the second story I have is called The Cursed House. Okay, so in town somewhere in the world, there is a large mansion of a house. Very beautiful, large mansion. And this real estate agent named Bev is selling this house. She has sold it to a few different couples that have about 6 months in to living in this home have come to her complaining that this house must be cursed. Some of them have lost their spouse to another person, have lost their job, lost all their money, went bankrupt, got sick, and things of that nature. They just think the house is cursed. So they've all, come back to this real estate agent claiming, I want this house sold, I want my money back, do what you got to do, blah, blah, blah. Well, Bev has an assistant, real sweet girl. She says, you have got to tell these people that you're selling this house to that something's wrong with this home. Something's not right. You need to tell them. She's like Miss Perfect, she doesn't feel it's her responsibility. Of course, if she tells them and they believe her, are they going to buy the house? No. So one day, another couple comes along and they love the house. They got the money. They want to purchase this house and live in it. Well, she sells it to him, tells him it's perfect, and you can see that the assistant ain't very happy. She's not told them about this house. So time goes by, she's doing her thing, and one day she comes back into her office and sees the man alone sitting at her desk. He looks like he's been put through the ringer and back. He looks bad. He's shriveled. He looks like he's been jumped. He looks like he's been drugged through the garbage. He just looks bad, like the cat spit him up. But she's like, what in the world has happened? He says, ever since I moved into this house, everything's gone wrong. I lost my wife to another man. I have stomach cancer. I've lost all my money. I've lost my job. My stocks and bonds, they have plummeted. I want this house sold. I want my money back. So she's like, well, the only way I can help you is if I give you a small amount of money and sell it. He says, I don't care what you sell it for. Get rid of it. I got to get out. I can't spend another night in this house. So she decides, okay, I'm going to buy this house. I want this house. I don't believe in the curse. I'm going to buy it. So she does. Well, that night she is relaxing in a bubble bath in the bathtub in the bathroom. Gorgeous, gorgeous bathroom. So she is talking on the phone, and mind you, this is not a cell phone. It's not a cordless phone. She's talking on the phone to her assistant, talking about, oh, I love this house. There's nothing wrong with it. As soon as she says that, a storm starts, lightning hits, and sends an electric spark through the phone cord and fries Bev to death. She was later found in the bathtub, electrocuted. Okay, so that one was called Cursed House. Okay, so my next story is called Vampire. Okay, there was a large hospital. It was late at night, and the nurse that had that night shift, she is pretty much all alone. She's like the only nurse around. And she gets someone that comes in very malnourished, very anemic, and she goes and starts trying to pump him full of fluids, blood, so on and so forth. So he is put into a hospital room, and she's monitoring him and stuff through the night. Well, he acts very, very strange. Looks really weird, acts very strange, and she's like, well, this guy, he looks like a freaking vampire. So she kind of like forgets a little bit about it. And the next night she comes in on her shift. It's like way past visiting hours. She goes into his room to check on him, and there is sitting a very elderly couple, very odd looking, look like they're from Transylvania. And they're sitting there, and she's like, well, y'all need to leave because it is like way past visiting hours. And they're like, you know what? You need to leave the room. We're visiting with our friend. And she's like, well, okay, I'll bend the rules this time. And the longer she stays in the room, the angrier the patient gets. He tells her to get out. So she does. And she's just thinking things are really strange. Well, after a while, she's in the nurse's station and she sees this couple leaving. And when they're like going towards the elevator, she sees that they're both dragging these huge duffel bags cram packed with something. And as she tries to run towards them and tell them to stop, the elevator door is closing on them. So she's like, this is weird. Well, she goes back to his room to check on him to see what's going on. And she starts to look into the bathroom in his room, and he sees her and he's like, you need to leave my room, leave me alone, you don't need to be in here. Freaks her out. She leaves. Well, she goes back to the nurse's station, and a fellow nurse comes in. It's a guy, and she's like, can you please take him down to x-ray and leave him there for a while? So he does, and as they're leaving, the guy's being wheeled away in a wheelchair, and she goes into the room and opens up the bathroom in his hospital room, and she sees hundreds upon hundreds of packets of blood all over the floor, empty packets, blood all over, smeared all over the floor, all over the walls. She's tripping. All of a sudden, she's grabbed from behind by this guy, and she turns around and finds the other nurse sitting in the wheelchair with his neck bits. The guy freaks out. He shoves her, and he runs and literally jumps out the window, falls to where you would think his death, and he's not there. He has run off or disappeared, which would have killed anybody else, but this guy's gone. So there was reports that this guy was never seen again. Okay, that one was called Vampire. Okay, so I have got one more story for you. It is called Ring Toss. And I hope you've been listening to each of these stories and deciding whether or not you think they are true or made up. So this is my last one. It takes place at an amusement park. And you know how most amusement parks have like the booths where you can like play ring toss or things like that. And usually the people running it are like con artists, and they just want to take your money. Well, there's this guy named Fat Joe, and he is in charge of this ring toss game. Kids are constantly all day giving him their money, trying to play the game and win large stuffed animals. And he has been ripping kids off every day and all day long. And this one older elderly man comes up. He's dressed kind of like in like plaid clothing, shirt, pants, shoes, suit, tie, his hat, everything's plaid. And he's very elderly, and he comes up and he says, you know what, Fat Joe? I have been watching you rip these kids off all day for days. I have been watching you, and you make me sick. And he says, he gives him $1 and he wants to play ring toss. He plays this game all day long, winning all these stuffed animals for all these kids. Well, large crowds start forming. They're excited watching this guy get Fat Joe back for what he's done to all these kids, ripping them off. He didn't like this, so he starts playing, and all day long he's just, winning people's stuff all day. Well, Fat Joe gets really mad, and he's like, I'm going to get you, old man. Your time's coming. And so he tells everybody, the ring toss game's shut down. It's out of order. Come back later. Well, everybody's upset. They leave. Well, Fat Joe kind of finds the old man, kind of like in a smaller, dark alleyway sort of thing, and threatens him. He shoves him on the ground and smashes his glasses. The old man starts laughing at him, and Fat Joe is called over to the the scary house to fix something on the inside. Well, he goes in. He's kind of scared. He hears some really evil, creepy laughter. He thinks it's one of the visual or the sound effects that won't stop. So he's freaking out, and he keeps hearing this laughter, and he hears someone say, I'm gonna get you, Fat Joe. He ends up getting his foot caught in one of the carts that you sit in and ride in through the scary thing. And all of a sudden he looks up and he sees the old man, but he's not an old man. He is a puppet. This puppet came to life and got Fat Joe back for what he did. Fat Joe was later found hung by one of his own ring rings from his ring toss game. Never found out how it happened. Alright, so I just read you these stories, and check out my next video as soon as I'm done with this one, after this one is posted, and find out whether these stories were true or false.